Hey everyone, it's Marilyn. Welcome back to KK's Quilt Studio. Today is April 1st, 2019. So happy April Fool's Day, everybody. I know that any day of the year can feel like April Fool's Day, make you feel like an April Fool, or somebody's playing a bad April Fool's joke on you when you have all this wonderful sewing software and machines, and gosh, you wish you could use them all together. Well, I'm going to show you in this video how we can use, in particular, some of the project files in the Brother Scan and Cut and Canvas WorkSpace, the cut files saved as the FCM file extension, and turn those into a Machine Embroidery Applique through Art and Stitch. So I played around with some of the files I found in Canvas WorkSpace, and I used both the online and the offline version of them. My daughter and son-in-law have recently purchased a new home and are going to be celebrating their first Easter in that home. So I thought I would make them something like, a pillow cover, or maybe a little flag banner for a housewarming gift, and I came up with this little Happy Easter design. And I'm going to take you through both software, Canvas WorkSpace and Art and Stitch, and show you how I created an embroidery file. So I'm going to stitch this out on my embroidery machine and use my cutting machine. I have the Brother Scan and Cut DX, the newest machine. I'm going to cut out these files for applique on my embroidery machine. So let's first move over to the Canvas WorkSpace online and get started. And I wanted to let you know, if you need more information on this, when you find files and comments in the comment section below. I am going to do a class on this for people who need a more step-by-step version. If you're unfamiliar with Art and Stitch or Canvas WorkSpace and really need it a detailed class from the ground up, we are going to be offering a paid class on my website. And again, you'll find information at the end of this video and down below in the comments section how to get to my website. And this video, it is going to be lengthy, but it is going to take you through how to navigate back and forth with files between the programs and how to create a similar design such as this. So let's move on over to the online Canvas WorkSpace. So I have signed in to my account on Canvas WorkSpace, and I went down to the lower portion of the screen, the lower right, and you'll see these three little icons. This little icon, the first one, is called Filter, and it is actually a search tool. So go ahead and click on that. I entered Easter. I'm going to search the categories for any projects that have to do with Easter. And I came up with this Easter wall ornament. Now, for some reason, this is only on, I only found it on the online version. I did not find it on the desktop version of Canvas WorkSpace. So we're going to be using this one first, and then we're also going to be using this, some of the designs from the Easter card. So go ahead and click on that Easter wall ornament. And you'll see that this project, there are several files, and all we're going to need is this project file 226E, and that has the little bunnies and the flowers. When you hover over that file, you see you have two choices in purple. This one is to import the parts directly to your Canvas WorkSpace project page, and this one is to actually download the parts. For today, all we're going to need is to import those parts, and it will put them up on our page, our work page. So all I'm going to want from this design is the bunnies and the flowers here. I don't need all these extra flowers. They are just duplicated and resized shapes in the project file, so we can either hit the delete key on our keyboard or hit that little trash can and they're all gone. So okay, we've got those, we're good. I'm going to title this file Bunnies. And then we'll click download to download it to our computer. And we'll ask you how you want to download these. Are you ready to send them to your machine? Well, not quite yet. We want to download this to our PC so that we can import them to the Art and Stitch files, and you'll see that downloaded down here, and you will find this file over in your downloads portion of your Windows File Explorer if you're using Windows. So we can go ahead and close out this, and we can move on over to our Art and Stitch file. So here we are in Art and Stitch. I imported this file to my workspace area by importing artwork and then navigating on my computer to where I had that bunny file. Remember, when you download it, it automatically goes to your downloads folder, and if you want to save it to somewhere else, sometimes I save my work that I'm going to be working back and forth with to my Dropbox file, but you'll use the import artwork feature found right here, and that will open up the file that we saved from the Canvas workspace. And you'll notice when I click on this that those bunnies are all connected, so I want to separate them and move them around on my design project page here. So what I need to do is right click and go down to break apart, and now I have 3 separate bunnies just by clicking on them. See, there's 3 separate objects, and again my flowers are all one object. Right click again and break those apart. So now I am free to click on each individual portion and move them around and arrange them how I would like. And the next thing that I did was to add, I needed to add a stem to my flower. So I used my drawing tools over here. I used that rounded rectangle and drew a narrow little rectangle. Go to my reshape tool, double click on that. That gives me a smooth point, so I can bend that line. Double click again to add another smooth point, and that gives me a nice little stem. So now I can move that around. I can use my rotation tools to move it over, so I can arrange it then how I'd like. The next thing I did was to add some letters, so I chose a bolder font. I wanted a nice fat font for this, so I chose bolder. That's one of the fonts found in my computer. Fonts that you may have on your computer might be a little bit different. These are true type fonts. We're going to click OK, and I typed in the text Hoppy, so go ahead and click OK again, and there are our words. You may want to enlarge them just by clicking, holding, and dragging on that diagonal box. That'll change those words, and I'd kind of like to arch them a little bit. Now you cannot arch letters easily in Canvas WorkSpace, so you can only do this in Art and Stitch. So I'm going to go to right click and transform, go to transform, and I'm going to use this convex. So you see that gives it a little arch. If I want to make it even more archy, I can simply click on it and click transform and convex again. You'll see that even more increases the arch. You can also, if you have Art and Stitch Plus, use your text and lettering tools, and there is a circle, or you can use text on path. So those are a couple other choices you can use to design your letters. So I designed that the way I wanted to get it, and I went to, so there's the file that I started with, and how did I color everything in? I changed my background by going under View, Background, and you can change the color. So that's one change that I made to the file. If we go back here, you see I used my fill tool. Check that fill box, and I made that little bunny pink. And don't forget to click apply. That's how I colored everything in. So everything looks solid. I just did that for visual purposes, so I could sort of get a glimpse of what it's going to look like when I actually apply some color, some fabric to that. Now we will need to export the artwork, and I will want to give it a title. Be sure to navigate to a portion in your file, and I'm going to actually use Dropbox, and I'm going to give it a name that I want to save it as, and then we want to export the artwork as either an SVG or an FCM. FCM is a native file to Brother Scan and Cut. It will also read SVG files. It will also read AI. So once you've selected the format you want to save it in, go ahead and click Save. I've already had this file, so we're going to take this file, we're going to move back over to our Canvas WorkSpace, because I wanted to add some little extras to that file. I was going to show you how we're going to use those other files from the card, and this time we're going to use the Canvas WorkSpace that is the offline version, the version I have loaded onto my laptop. Okay, here we are. As I said, this is the online or the offline version of Canvas WorkSpace. It looks a little bit different than the online, has some functionality differences. So first thing we're going to do is to import that design, or you can also go down here to the little import from your computer button, the little SVG file, and we're going to bring in this Happy Easter. And that's not the original file. Let me pull up the original file. Let's try that again. Hit the SVG files, and I save that as an SVG document. And note the different file formats that you can open in Canvas WorkSpace. And so there is our version so far. We have the flowers, the little stems, our little bunnies. But when I got back to this, I thought I want to do a little more to this. I wanted to add in those Easter eggs. So let's go up here to our pattern collection, and you'll see this time that the search function is up here at the top. It's a little bit different than the online version. If you click in the search box, now you have tags to search by, and we're going to search by that Easter tag, and that brings up pretty much the same files that we got in the online version. There's our Easter card, so we'll click on that, and this time we only want this first version of that file, and it's automatically going to load that to our workspace area when I click on it, and you'll see there they are. Okay, I won't be needing this one, so we can go ahead and cut that, either Control X or Edit Cut from the menu. We will drag this over to the side because we're not going to need it right away. And we are one thing other I wanted to change. I got to looking in the text files here. I liked some lettering better, so I'm going to select these letters, left click and drag across. I'm going to get rid of these, get rid of the Easter, and I'm going to select, and I liked, use the drop down menu, I liked Cairo. So if I click on my workspace anywhere, I'm going to retype in Happy Easter. Okay, and click off of that, onto text again. Okay, and you'll notice that, like I said, we cannot curve those easily in Canvas WorkSpace. So what I will need to do is save this file one more time, take it back into Art and Stitch, and let's trying to select this file and drag it back in. I'm going to put it in a place where I can easily pull it apart. Okay, so now we are going to run this. We're going to export that file, and we are going to send it back to Art and Stitch, and I'm going to save it as Untitled. And you'll notice that all we can do is save this file type as an FCM. Art and Stitch doesn't have a problem with that because it can also save in that format and it can read in that format. So we're not through working on this file, so we're not going to give it a name yet, and we're going to move back into Art and Stitch to finalize everything up. So here we are back in Art and Stitch, and again, to get this file open, you go into File and Import Artwork, and even though we had everything colored and we saved it as an FCM file, it's not going to bring in all those filled in colors. So kind of like everything looks, remember that these are in layers. If you look under Sequence View, there are all our flowers, but some appear on top of each other. So this one would stitch out first, this one would stitch out next. So it's going to give us a file when we fill it in that looks something like this. So that's how I used my properties. Remember, have the fill box checked, and we can color in our file. So after I rearranged everything, moved things around, this is my final file. This is what I'm going to send back to my cutter, and this is what I'm going to use as the banner. So everything will be at the size that I have it set at, and I am going to select a couple of these bunnies to show you just for demonstration purposes. And here is our bunny. I would do this to each and every portion of this file that I wanted to do as applique. So if I wanted to make an applique out of the egg and then stitches here on the file, I can create that here in Art and Stitch, and we will cover this thoroughly in the class. But for this video, I'm just going to show you how to do the applique. So here's one bunny, and creating applique in Art and Stitch is easy as clicking one tool, our applique tool, and you'll see there that created a applique file. If we look over in Sequence View, the applique does indeed have a three-step process. So if you're familiar with applique, you know that you have 3 steps, 3 different colors. It doesn't mean you have to stitch these out in red, purple, and ugly green. You can stitch them out in one color, but there are different colors for color stops. You can also change the applique type. If you don't want satin stitches, you can change blanket or motif. You have the choice to choose if you want a sew placement, tack down, and a sew finish. You also have the choice of the tack down type, either a run or a zigzag. And I'll show you that in the next slides that we're going to be showing when we take this over to our machine. So from here, we'll want to save these, the finished file. We'll save it as, and then you're going to select from your machine format for embroidery. So I save this in a PES file. Don't forget to save one as a Art and Stitch working copy, and then go back and save again in the machine format. So if there's any changes you need to make, you always come back to this Art and Stitch ANS file. I've already saved that, so let's move on over into the embroidery files. So for this portion of the video, and for a little bit easier visual purposes, I'm going to use slides. So we will take our cut portion of our file, our FCM file, and I've deleted everything out but the bunnies for this. So I'm going to show you specifically how to create your fabric pieces for embroidery by just using 2 of the bunnies. So I just selected a couple of them, and then we're going to move to our fabric. So I'm using this piece of gray fabric for my bunnies, and you would apply heat and bond. I use a heat and bond in order to tack down my my fabrics once I have them on my machine. We're going to place the fabric, then heat and bond side down onto a standard cutting mat, load it into your machine, and then scan so you know where your fabric is. And then you're going to locate those bunny files over the fabric images. So remember, we had those 2 files, so we are going to place them over the fabric areas, and then we're going to go ahead and cut the bunnies, remove the excess fabric, and then we're going to take our pieces over to our embroidery machine. Now you should have already loaded your Art and Stitch design file to your machine. Some of the newer files, I know you can transfer it wirelessly right to your computer. I don't have that yet, so hoping soon. So load your design file from your computer to the embroidery machine via USB, and you'll see when you bring that stitch file up, there are the 3 portions for an applique file. You have placement, tack down, and your final stitch file, be it satin stitch, a running stitch, or motif. Okay, so here are the basic applique steps. We're going to stitch the placement lines, and you'll see that the shape of my bunny stitches out, just a running stitch, and then the machine stops. We're going to take our fabric and place it right over top of the stitch lines, same shape, so it should be easy. Sometimes I use my little iron and use that heat and bond, or actually take my frame from my machine. I still have a small iron. I have a little ironing board or ironing pad on the side of my machine, but using that heat and bond, adhere that fabric to the surface of your background so that it's stable. And then we're going to stitch the tack down. I have used a zigzag stitch. I like a zigzag for fabric that I've already cut out with my brother's scan and cut. If you don't have a scan and cut and you were using a regular running line, then you can trim away your fabric. But we've got that wonderful scan and cut machine, so why do that extra step? And then I stitch my final applique. I used a satin stitch in this case. No need, you see, in any of these to change threads. I did this all with blue thread just so it could show up better. So remember, those color changes are just there to provide for machine stops. So that is it in a nutshell so you won't feel like such an April Fool. Don't forget that this is going to be an in-depth class loaded up later this week, and you can contact me anytime in any of these social media groups through the Digital Quilting Bee message board. I have a Facebook group, Art and Stitch and Pro Stitcher Digital Quilting Fuse. Of course, here on my YouTube channel, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and ring that little notification bell so that you will be alerted every time something new is posted. And you can find our upcoming class at kk'squiltstudio.com under the classes tab. And don't forget, like I said, contact me anytime with questions you might have or suggestions for a new tutorial. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Until we meet next time, I wish you happy quilting.